Good morning. Let's get started. So yesterday we have seen some part of validations, and we'll continue on that. So the issue yesterday we have noticed is this validation is working fine, but we are not giving any messages to the user. So try to make your application as interactive as possible. The reason is user should know, he should not go mad. Now he'll go mad. He doesn't know what's going on because he's entering some value, but still button is disabled. He thinks that there is a bug in your application. So let's make it interactive by throwing some messages, error messages, saying that, okay, this is what is wrong with your data or something like that. Let's go ahead and do that. First thing, I'll have a span tag here. It's an error message, so I want to show it in red color, and I'll say required. So this is just a simple HTML span tag, but we'll make it dynamic in a minute. So come back, and here we are. This is how it looks like. So now it doesn't really work because we haven't made it dynamic. It's simple dump span tag. So what I'm going to do is I'll have one template variable here for brand ng model. So when I say this, I'll have entire access to this element with the help of this template reference variable. So using that, I can use ng if saying that brand dot invalid. If it isn't invalid, show it, otherwise don't. Because this form will have valid and invalid properties. Each of every element inside that form will have this valid and invalid properties. See, now it shows required. When I select something, that message is gone. And that's what I was looking at. The same thing I'm going to do it for rest of the elements. So let's copy this and paste it somewhere. And I want to have access to this element. So I'm going to say model. If model is invalid, just show the span. And the same thing for the next element, probably price. I'm going to copy and paste this and say price. Okay, so that's all I need. Now at least this form will show some error messages. It shows up required, that's true. It's gone. Now I'll enter something. Still the message is there. And I'll enter from price. Still the message is there like this. So even though we have made some improvement, it's not really a great looking form. The reason is I'm entering something, it still says required. And user thinks that there is again a bug in your application. The reason is you are entering some text, still the form is yelling at you saying it's required. So it doesn't make much sense. Honestly, it is failing some other sort of validation, which is min length. So no matter which validation is failing, this field would be rendered invalid if any of the validation is failing. Min length, max length, pattern. Here, pattern validation is failing. So the field is rendered invalid and we are saying required. So rather than giving a generic message, let's try to be more specific about the messages. So this, let me have a table here and show you what are the properties available that you can make use of them to design your form or validate your form. So one is I would like to have my element, and the second thing is errors. So there is errors property on every element. This shows you what is wrong with that field. So I'm going to say TD. The element is I'm looking at, say, brand or model, whatever it is. And another TD, I'll say model dot errors. I believe it's errors. If not error, come back. Okay, it says object. So let me do one thing. Say table. And instead of saying object, you can use something known as JSON pipe to stringify it. Here it is. See, now the required validation is failing, so that's why there is an error, and this field is invalid. So I want to know the state of that field. I'll say invalid. Here it is. See, it's not really updated yet. Let's save it again. Okay, it says invalid true. The reason why it is invalid is required validation is failing. Okay, now I'll go ahead and enter some text. See, now the errors is changed. Still it is invalid, but the reason why it is invalid is now changed to min length. It says, okay, required length is 3, but the actual length is 1. So min length is failing. And when I say ABC, see, the errors is gone. Now it's null, like that. If there is no error, or if the field is valid, the errors property is going to be null, empty. And that's what we actually want every field to have. So with this knowledge, let's go ahead and try to be more specific about the error messages. So I'll go to my model field, somewhere here it is, and I'll have 3 tags or 2 tags, say minimum 3 characters. And the same way I'm going to say max 10 characters, something like that. So I want to show this error message only when model has errors dot required. Remember this safe navigation operator or null coalescing operator. This is important because at some point this errors is going to be null. If it is null, you're calling something on null. So calling any property or method on null is going to throw you an exception. So make sure you have this operator that's going to be safe navigation operator. Here I'll say min length and errors dot max length. Okay. Like this, you'll be more specific about errors and checking what type of error is in it. Min length. If there is no error, all these 3 will not be shown. So we have learned about ng switch. So if you want to try that out, definitely you can go ahead and try that. Replace this, take it as an assignment and try to replace this if statements into a switch case statement or ng switch. Anyway, let's come back. See, there are no error message. That is surprising. Now it says min characters, minimum 3 characters. Okay, somewhere I missed something. REQUIRED. Yeah. So now it says required. That's correct. I'll enter something. Now it says minimum 3 characters, like this. So as user is interacting with that, and your form is also giving some responses back, and this is the better way of showing error messages and meaningful messages. And the same thing I'm going to do with price. So the price, I'm going to say errors dot required, show this required message. If errors dot pattern, because the pattern is going to fail, so invalid price. See, now it says invalid price and 120 valid price. Say ABC, everything is valid. Like this. Now the form is valid, the button is enabled. Now you can hit on save product. This should insert the data. Okay, so this is well and good. Now come back from products page to this page. Now, as soon as I come here, I haven't done anything, but I'm seeing these error messages. So these are kind of again intimidating to the user. User hasn't even touched any of the form. You are throwing the error messages. So maybe for a technical user it's okay, but again for a user who is not techie, probably this is going to intimidate. Error messages are always intimidating for the common users. So rather than showing the error messages straight away, show him as he starts interacting with that form. So for that, Angular provides you some inbuilt properties. Let's focus on them. So we have seen one property on an element that is invalid. The same way you have valid property. Save this, and a valid and invalid are mutually exclusive. They both cannot be true at the same time. Like this. If it is invalid, this is going to be false. If it is valid, it's going to be false. Something like this. See? Now it is true. This one is false. That's what I was talking about. They are mutually exclusive. Now, the same way you have some properties such as dirty and pristine. I'm going to copy and paste it a couple of times and change it to dirty and pristine. Okay, these two are mutually exclusive. What do I mean by dirty is as soon as user starts typing something into the form, see, now the dirty is true and pristine is false. While on the first scenario, pristine is true, dirty is false. Same as invalid and valid. The only thing is dirty is set to true as soon as I start typing something or, or as soon as I start interacting with that form. So this is one property that will help us show the error messages as soon as user interacts with that form rather than showing it straight away. So let's see how we can do that. So go to here. So this model has a property dirty. So I'm just going to say dirty. If it is dirty and if it has error message, show it. Otherwise, don't. Pretty simple fix, but this is going to improve our experience. So just say price. And the same thing I'm going to do for brand. Here it is. And now see, there are no error messages. The form looks clean. And now I'll start typing something and I'll start to notice some error messages. This makes sense because I'm showing the error message when it is dirty, like this. So that's how the dirty is used. In the same way, pristine can also be used. The only thing is you should put not pristine here. Dirty is good rather than having a not operator and doing all those that kind of stuff. Just use dirty and that's enough. But alternatively, you can use pristine as well. Okay, so if you want more and more, again, more enhancement in your user experience, you can use some property like touched. You have a property by the name touched. Okay, let's put a border here so that you can see it properly. Okay, so we have here touched property and it is set to false. I'm typing something into the model element, still it is false. Notice that I'll hit tab or lose the focus, then it is true. So when an element is blurred, and that's when the touched is set to true. So the name is little confusing because touched means we think that as soon as user touches that element, it's not true. So as soon as user loses the focus, that's when it is set to true. So that's important. So what I want to do is I want to show my error messages once user types something and leaves that field. That's when I want to validate it and show the message. It's very easy. Instead of dirty, just use touched. Again, this is based on your requirement. If you want to use dirty or touched, it's up to you. something like this. So your user will not see a message unless he leaves the field. See, no error messages. I'll hit tab. Now the message shown up like this. I focus on this and I lose the focus. That's when I see the error messages like that. So that's how you can use these inbuilt properties. So it's up to you. Uh, how well can you design your form? It's just I'm showing you fundamentals. I'm not really good at designing, but using these fundamental techniques, you can design form the way you want, and you can enhance the user experience to a great extent. Okay. Now, one last thing we'll see in this form and jump into another topic is the CSS styles. So you can apply styles for this element based on its validity or the state, you can say. So first thing is, if you notice here, this drop down has ng valid there because the value is valid. So it is set to ng valid class. A class is set on that element. And when you notice this model element, see ng invalid class is set. So the class is already set. I can use that to design something better. So let's see. It's going to be a trick. So go to your styles.css and say ng valid. That's the name of the class. So if it is valid, I'm going to say border 1px solid green. So I want to have a green border if it is valid, and I want to have invalid border or red border if it is false. Come back. Here it is. Okay, it became too ugly, but just okay, that's fine. Now at least we made some progress. The border is red. I'll select something. The border is green. I'll enter a meaningful value. The border is green, and so on. Like this. But anyway, the form is also having this border. I don't like that. The form also has this border because form also has valid and invalid classes. So that's kind of making it look ugly. So what I'll do, I'll say only input. Only input elements. I want to apply this CSS classes. Again, this is a CSS trick. Now, if you notice here, we have border, red border because the price is invalid. So this is another enhancement. This is not an input element, this is select. So that's why you're not noticing the red border around it. So let's put another class here for select. Okay, invalid. Okay, we got a border here and now it's green like this. You can have borders and you can supply the value. Error messages are also shown, or sometimes you may not want to show error messages. It's up to you how you want to go with that. But anyway, let's come back here, try to put it this way so that it becomes more readable. And but one thing is, it doesn't really look that great, the red and border colors. So what people have started doing is, rather than applying whole border around the whole element, they started applying a left border with a little bit of thickness. So say 5 pixels, but only border on the left hand side. So this makes it look better. And this is a nice cool trick I have learned from the internet. So it's not my own, like this. So now you have this, and this is better looking than the earlier one. See, now you have red like this. So rather than going with the red, and this looks a little bit odd, usually we go with a brown color, and that's better than red, like this. If you don't like that color, feel free to change it. Something. So that's about the forms and validations. Let me commit these changes. So now we know how to post the data to the web service and how to validate it on the client side. And we have seen different ways of showing the error messages using properties such as dirty and touched. And we know valid and invalid. And we have even learned that there is an errors property on it. We have learned about template reference variable. And then we have seen how to apply some CSS styling based on the state of an element. So all these things are going to help you design forms better. And this is coming at no cost. Angular provides you out of the box all these features, and all these can be done on the client side itself, even before going to your web service. Okay, so that's about template driven forms. Now we'll focus on some other concept, which is reactive forms. So there is one other way that you can create forms in Angular, and that is nothing but reactive forms. So I'll keep this component like that. I'm going to create a new component. I'll say reactive form, say ngGC reactive form. I'll go to product list component meanwhile. And wherever I have this button, not this one, it's product list component. Okay, here I have this button. So I'm just going to copy this and paste it. New product, I'll say reactive form. So this route doesn't exist, so I'm going to go and create. Go to app routing module or app router and just try to add one object and say products slash new reactive, and then component is going to be react form component. Okay, the order is important as I said earlier, so try to keep it at the right place. Save this. Now I'll go to new reactive form or new, okay, react form component and try to get rid of everything, whatever is not necessary. Okay, let the flow work and then we'll focus on the functionality. Here it is. I'll go to products. I should have another link. Yes, I have. And reactive form. The flow seems to be working absolutely fine. And make sure you're not breaking the detailed flow, because for some reason, and this both the URL look similar, so sometimes we are breaking this product detail component. Anyway, so here is where our focus is going to be. Reactive forms, where template driven forms, most of the stuff is done in the template, while in reactive forms, most of the configuration is done inside the component class, not inside the template. That's what reactive forms mean. So here I'll have a constructor. I need some of the inbuilt injections, such as form builder, to build a form. So you build a form from inside your component class. This is going to be a little complex than the template driven forms, but again, this gives you more control over how you create a form, and that everything can be done inside your component class. So I have my form builder and I need a form group. So I'll say form group. Any meaningful name of the form is fine. This is also a part of Angular forms. And one important thing I need to import is go to app module. All the functionality regarding this form builder and all those things are part of form reactive forms module. So I need to import that module. So I'm going to say reactive forms module. I would like to put my inbuilt or the third-party modules first and then my modules later. So reactive forms module is also added as an import statement. Now we are good to focus on this. Okay, so I have my form builder. Now I'm going to build the form. So I'm going to say this dot form is going to be this dot fb dot group because it's a group. So group function will help you create your form. Here you will have an object and what fields would you like to have? You will say it programmatically. You'll say brand and brand will have an array and that array will have some value such as say Apple, something like this. And then the other field is model. I don't want to have it any default value. And then price and then in stock like this. Save this. Now this is how you build a form. In order to link it with HTML, let's design our form here. So to save some time, I'm going to copy and paste from my previous component, which is new product component. So I'm going to pretty much copy and paste everything, including this form. And I'll try to remove some stuff such as this template variable is not needed. Get rid of this. ng model is not needed. Get rid of this. Name is not needed either. You don't need to say required here. Just a simple form it's going to be. So I'll get rid of all the template variables wherever I've used. So I'll get rid of the validations also. We'll add later. You will not specify any validations here in the template. That's going to be from the component class, but we are not yet ready for that stuff. So let's first just a simple form design, get rid of checkbox, name, and everything. Okay, let's not worry about this button at this moment. Remove this disabled. We don't have a click on handler yet. Let's have it. Click handler is going to be on save. Okay, save this. And now let's have a look at it, how this looks like. It's a simple form without any Angular stuff. Go to products, new product. See, yep, we have our data showing up here and nothing but our controls. Controls, I mean to say. It says model of undefined somewhere. Okay, get rid of this. Get rid of this. Okay, simple form, and I don't want this apple to be selected by default. So I would like to have an empty option. like this. Okay, now, so how can I grab the values of this form and post it? So I'm not going to show you how to post it to the web service. It's going to be the same. So we'll focus on how to grab the data. And once you grab the data, you can easily post it. So first thing, we haven't linked it yet. So this form and this form are not linked. You should somehow link both of them, saying that this is my form configuration. So you'll say using form group. There's a directive by the name form group. You'll say form. So form is nothing but your form here. Okay, now you have linked it, and then go ahead and link each and every control with that. So you'll use something like form control name directive, and this is also inbuilt directive, part of forms library. You're going to say name of the field. So what is the name of the field? And it is coming from here, brand. So whatever name you have given, you should link it here. Just linking is nothing but mapping here. So just map it. We'll say model, and the same thing goes with price. And we have a checkbox for in stock, like this. So once this mapping is done, now you can easily grab the form value saying console.log this dot form dot value. This dot form dot value is going to give you an object, and that object will have entire information. This is more clean. Now we have all the validations. Don't worry about them because we have set up the CSS classes. So that's why it is applied, because that were global CSS. So we don't want these styles everywhere. Probably you should have a separate file, CSS file for each and every component. Anyway, let's not worry about that. Like this. Now, when you say save product, see, I have my data coming up. Okay, once that is done, I want to reset my form. So it's very easy to reset here. You'll say form dot reset. So this resets everything, including validations. Say model, some model, doesn't matter. And we have our product. See, the model is reset, like that. So that's two method, one is property value, gives you the entire object information, and this is nothing but your reset method. Okay, now let's focus on validations. Let's remove this. So this first value is nothing but your default value. So if you want to assign some default value, say I want my model to be iPhone. So you can do this from here, and this value would be reflected inside this element. Here it is, like that. Anyway, I don't want any default values here. The first parameter is value. The second parameter is validations. So there can be more than validation. So you have one validation. So you'll have an array as the second element inside array. So it's like arrays of array. Now you're going to say validators dot required. So you're saying that this field is required. Okay. It's part of, again, Angular forms, this validators. So let's fix this import. This is not imported properly. And I'm going to say validators dot required validators dot min length. So min length, I'm going to say 3, something like that. So if this form is valid, then only I want to post it and reset it. So I'll say if this dot form dot valid, you have valid property on that form. Else show a message that validations are failing. come here and say save product. See, it says validations are failing. Shows a model, enter something. It says it resets the form. Let's focus on minimum validation, min length. See, it says validations are failing. What validations are failing? That you can grab it again with the help of this form. So if you want to show error messages, you might have already guessed that it's the difference between template driven and reactive forms. Reactive forms, everything, the configurations you are setting it inside a class. And the ultimate advantage that you get from the reactive forms is it is testable. So if you want to write unit test, automated unit test, it becomes very easy to test it rather than testing the template driven, because template is, again, it's going to be a separate stuff. It's HTML. So testing JavaScript is easier than testing HTML. So this makes it easy to test. And one important thing to remember is there is nothing as best approach. It's not like template driven forms are worst and reactive forms are good and vice versa. It's not like that. It's just you need to choose what works best for you. So both have their pros and cons. The pros of template driven forms, it's easy to set up, while reactive forms is a little complex to set up, but again, you get more and more control over the form. So you have valid property, and this property can also be set on the button to make sure that you disable this button. If you want to disable it, you can disable it saying frm dot, or this is nothing but form dot invalid. Okay, that's my bad. I'm in a wrong component. Let me go to my React form component. Yeah, inside button, if I want to have a disabled attribute, I can for form dot invalid. If it is invalid, just disable it. Again, if you don't disable it, we have a check here. We will only make a web service call if it is valid, otherwise we won't. See, now the button is disabled. Select all the required values, and now it is enabled. You have your data. Now this can be posted to web service. I'm not going to post it to web service. Okay, now show last part, showing the error messages. Now I want to show some sort of error messages here because I'm not showing. How can I do that in template driven forms? I'm going to show you for one element. Say text danger. Here you can grab the element using this form. This form is a group of elements. So this should have the information about the status of your element. So I'm going to say ng if. I'll say this dot, not this. I'll say form dot controls dot, name of the control is brand dot errors dot required. I'll say required like this. So it is a little, again, a lot of navigation to get to the element, but that's fine. Form dot controls dot brand. So I'm not putting a safe navigation operator inside in front of these properties. The reason is I'm very sure that these are never going to be null because I've created them. So I'm not putting a safe navigation operator there, but I'm not sure that errors is going to have something always. So that's why I'm putting this question mark here. So because I can put it here also, I can say form dot controls dot, and this is going to be kind of a redundant, and unless you are building a form dynamically, you don't need to do this because this form is available there, controls is available, brand is available, everything is available. So I can be pretty sure that I'm not going to notice any null reference exception here. But here, I'm not really sure because there can be a null reference exception. Anyway, now the error message is shown up and it's gone away now, like that. So the same rules apply, whatever we have discussed in template driven forms here as well. If you don't want to show the error message straight away, you can show it after touched or dirty or pristine, whatever it is. All the rules apply here, so we won't discuss again because it's pretty much same. The only difference is the way you access. Where there we have accessed using template reference variable. Here we are accessing it using form object. Here it is. So that's about reactive forms and validations, all those things. And these two methods are important. Let's commit these changes, say reactive forms. As we have few more minutes, let's try to focus on small pieces, such as I'll go to my products page, go to new product, and here as soon as I enter something, I'm showing us a message saying that the data is inserted successfully. So this is one way, and sometimes you want to redirect user back to the products page. So we haven't seen that, how to programmatically transfer user from one page to another, and that programmatic navigation we'll see now. So it's very simple, no rocket science. First, go to your new product component. So we'll get the router object. So I'll say private router. Probably it is router, if I'm not wrong. So I'm going to say once it is successful, I'll say router.navigate, this.router.navigate, like this. So this takes an array as a parameter and the name of the route. So the name of the route is I want to take my user to products. You may get a question, why do you need an array? Because it's just a string. So can't it be a string parameter? Why an array? We'll come back and talk. Let's this work. See, now we are coming back to the products page. Okay, now go back to this navigate method. This is the only way, this is the simplest way that you can navigate from user from one page to another. So I was talking about this array, why it is array. The reason is if you want to navigate user to this detailed page, this is not a route, this is a parameter. So you will pass the parameter inside that array as a second parameter like that. So that's why it's an array. If you are navigating without any parameters, you'll do this. If you have any parameters, you'll put it in the second element. So that's how you navigate user from one page to another programmatically. Okay. So now go back to app.module. We are done with forms. Now in the app.module, so we have this HTTP client module, and this app.module has only the components. So we have promised that we are not going to make any web service calls, HTTP service calls from the components, and this HTTP client module is here, and it doesn't make much sense. The reason is there are only components, and you have a dependency of HTTP client module. So this dependency should not be here, and it's okay if it's there, but again, it doesn't make much sense if it's there. So let's get rid of this, and this should go where you are making HTTP calls. Where are we making? Inside our shade module. So that I would like to add an import. Simple. So now your shade module has a dependency of HTTP client, and we have removed the HTTP client module dependency from this app module. This makes more sense rather than having HTTP client here. And now this shade module is truly reusable because now it is independent of anything else, independent of app module or some other module except this module. So it is self-sufficient. Go back, and this should not break anything. We should be able to make web service call, and we should be able to get the data still. Looks like we are making, and we are getting the data like that. So that's one improvement. So another concept we will discuss is go to app module.ts, And we have this components. Well, it's a lot of things, like probably as many as 10 components and 10 lines of code I have. So it is okay, but using ES6 feature or TypeScript feature, you can improve this. So let me tell you what that means. So I'll remove this from here. I'll go to my app folder. Inside app folder, I would like to create app.barrel.ts. So the concept name is barrel. So you put everything here and you export from here. You export it and you import from that barrel rather than importing it from its separate file, each component from its own file. Just import it from the barrel like this. Import all the components from app.barrel. So this is kind of reduce the number of lines of code, and this should not break our application. Still, it should be working. So looks like app router module cannot find app router module. So at the time of cutting and pasting it, I might have messed it up a little bit. I don't need this here, rather I need it here. Import. So if you don't like this, you can put it in a separate barrel, and this comes down to at least 1 or 2 lines. See, everything seems to be working as expected. So it doesn't necessarily mean that you should create barrel always. I don't mean to say that. This is just a concept. If you like it, yeah, definitely you can go ahead and refactor it. And this is not an Angular concept. This is ES6 concept. So it's like you're creating one file, you're importing something, and you're throwing it back, throwing it outside. So you're exporting it again from one file. And the advantage that you get out of this is you're importing from this file, because app component belongs to app.component.ts file, and same way home component belongs to some other file. So rather than importing it from each specific component from specific file, just import it from here because it is being exported back. So that's barrel concept, very simple. Okay, I'm just thinking, what else can we do? We have a few more minutes. So let's see if we can do some small stuff enhancements. Okay, come back to product list component. Here, I'm using this products as any. If you don't define a type, it's going to be any. So I'm using this any, and this is kind of, again, ugly. The reason is this is going to hurt even if you're using TypeScript. The reason I'll say products of 0 dot price. I know price is a number, but I can still assign a string. This is kind of uh, ugly because this can throw a runtime error, and we are again going back to JavaScript. So we are not using strongly typed models, rather we are just using any type. Any type is flexible, but again, it's not going to help you. So what I want to do is I want to get rid of this any and make it kind of a model or kind of a strongly typed model. So I'll go to shade folder, app, shade, say app dot. No, I'm not going to say app dot, but let's create a models folder here. Inside models, I would like to create product dot model dot ts. So I want to define a structure for my model. So I'll create a class. I'll say product, and that class will have properties such as rand of type string, price of type string, model string, price is not string, it's number, in stock, type boolean, Then I have underscore ID. Don't forget that one. We are using it. So these are the few things that I need at this moment. And we have last updated as well, which is of type date. Great. So this class needs to be exported so that we can use it. And some people tend to use this as an interface. It's up to them. It's up to you again. If you want to go with a class or interface, I don't mind. So I usually go with a class. And now I'll go back to my product list component and change it to product array. Import it. You don't need to add it to the module because it's just a simple class. It is nothing specific to Angular, so no need to include it inside module. See, now there is an error. It is helping you. It's saying that price supposed to be a number, but you're assigning a string. So this is how you create it. We are probably after 2 weeks of Angular course, we are creating a model. But when you are working with real-time application, you would create this in the beginning. So product model, you will create it in the beginning because this course is structured so that it is fed a little by little rather than feeding everything at once. So I'm creating it in the end, but in real-time application, you'll create it in the beginning. You will not use any as much as possible, the type any as much as possible. So that's one improvement as we have created a model. Now I'll go back to product service. We are returning this product list. Here also I can say product of array of products like this. And this returns me a strongly typed object of type product array. And even after this change, I shouldn't be breaking anything. Still, my application should be working. It does like this. And one more thing is, so make sure you are very sure about what type of data that you're returning from a method. So we are returning an observable. So be explicitly mention that an observable of type product array. And this observable is part of RxJS library. Import it. RxJS/observable. Save this. Okay, we're still getting the data. And the same thing I'm going to do for this one. So I'm going to say it returns an observable of product because this returns only product, not list of products. There is an error because we are not returning of type product. So that's why there is an error. We'll fix this with this generic get method. So this HTTP has two methods. One is get, another one is generic get, and this is the generic. So save this. And one last thing we'll see, probably that takes another 5 minutes, is go to product list component, product detail component, and try to fix the issue. Here we have reviews also. If you notice here, our product model doesn't have reviews property. So now we should fix that. Go to product, click on F12. This takes you to the definition. And here I would like to add reviews. So reviews is not going to be a simple type. It's going to be a complex type because review itself will have some other fields such as review its last updated, when it was last updated, and name of the person who reviewed it, and rating. It's going to be a number, subject, string. The message that he's going to give is also a string like this. So it's a good idea that you don't club classes. Every class should go inside a separate file, no matter how huge it is or how small it is. So I'll go and create review.model.ts and paste it here, export it, come back and say control dot import it like this. So now our product model also has reviews. So we are trying to make our application strongly typed as much as possible. And these models give you a consistent structure to your application. Go back to product detail component And even after this change, your application should still be working. Here it is. I don't think I have reviews for that product. Probably this product has some reviews. Okay, not sure. Somewhere it is lost. But yeah, give it a shot. I don't think this will break anything. There it is. So that's how you define your models. So take it as an assignment, try to modify wherever we are using any, try to change it. We have used it many times, such as here. We are not using strongly typed stuff here. And this is one place. And probably in the new product component. So I'm going to do for that new product component. Here, I don't want this to be any type. Rather, I want it to be product type. Here, when I say product, now you'll have an error because you said it's of type product and it is any type, this object. So there is a kind of LHS is not equals to RHS. So that's why there is an issue. So from the constructor, I would like to initialize this. I'll say this dot product. You'll just say new product. That's it. Because new product is a class and you're creating an object of it. Save this. Now your product is strongly typed. Here you have an error because again, you're doing the same thing. So I'm going to say new product. Come here and let's make sure we are able to insert some data. Okay, it is inserted here. So that's about the models. Models are very important. And if you don't use models, you're losing again, the benefit of TypeScript. It's as good as you're not using TypeScript because you're still going back to the old school technique of JavaScript. Anyway, we'll stop here and tomorrow we'll discuss something else.